with cleanup. I'm gonna have 3 separate bowls for 3 separate colors. So it doesn't have to be specific colors, but just with 3 colors, we're gonna be able to create all the different rainbow colors that you see here. So I'm gonna tell you about that in a little bit too. We're also going to use baking soda, okay? And this is something, like you guess, it's used in baking. It's also used in a lot of health products, and it's just something that a lot of people have around their house. Sometimes people use it to not make their fridge stinky. And then vinegar, of course, which is what we're gonna use for our science experiment kind of part. It's these 2. So basically, it's gonna be a really fun way of creating, and it's not too crazy, right? It's just very simple, and it can also be used with very few supplies. Okay, so let me show you again real quick. I wanted to tell you about my brushes. So over here, let's leave this like that. Over here we have these brushes. They're really pretty. They're Japanese brushes. And again, you don't have to use this type of brush. Whatever you have at home is great. And what these are specifically made for is for ink and for watercolors. So it's a lot of stuff that, you know, that's very aqueous, which means that it's made out of water. Okay, so any type of very fluid art, very watery art, you can see this one just like mops around. You're gonna see how it acts. This is a round brush, and it has a little point there at the end, another Japanese brush. And these are made out of bamboo. So they're very simple, they're not expensive, but you know, they're nice and sturdy, and people have been using these for centuries, okay? And then, of course, one more Japanese brush that I have here. This is a flat brush. It's about 1 inch thick. And this one also happens to be Japanese just by the way it's put together. But this is something very similar to what we buy at the Home Depot when we want to just brush our walls and paint our walls. It's just a very simple flat brush. And this one is going to give us a lot of coverage, and it's going to be really fun. One more brush I want to show you is this watercolor brush, and you can see it's pretty thick and the bristles are very, very long, and it's called a mop brush because it acts like a mop. I can literally like mop around with this brush. And this one is really fun because it takes up a lot of water and a lot of paint, and you can really just like blob on with this guy. It's really fun, okay? So just some ideas, like if you ever are buying brushes or you think you want to buy some, these are just some really fun ones that we're going to play with today. Okay, so I'm going to lower this again. Okay, there we go. And I hope everybody can see well. Okay, and the first thing we're going to do is mix our paints. And I said we're only going to use 3 colors. So the first thing is, if you haven't done so already, you're going to put water into, let's say, 3 different bowls. And whatever colors, whatever, if you have food coloring, if you have watercolors, if you have paint, whatever type of colors, most types of colors are going to work today. So if you have a question, maybe raise your hand and the people on our team can let me know and I can answer those questions as we go, okay? So don't fret. Okay, now, I'm gonna mix my colors. I have my 3, put this away for now. I have my 3 bowls. And if you have food coloring, I would put 3 drops in each little bowl, just for a little bit of water. And you can see how dark it gets. I'm going to use acrylic paints today because this is what I had around the house. Or you can use tempera paint or watercolors. I can show you how it would work with watercolors. The colors won't be as strong. So just get maybe a few drops in there until you feel like the color is nice and strong. Take a brush or whatever you're using to stir, maybe a stick, and mix it around. Make sure you get a good swirl, that all the color is mixed in the water. So you can see here, my water has changed into blue, okay? And that is what I want. So here is the first color that I'm going to encourage you to use today, and this is blue, okay? It is a cool color. And when we think about blue, we think usually, there's many things for blue, but we might think about the sky, we might think about water, we might think about, yeah, maybe like very deep water is what I usually think. We might think about cold weather. So that's a cool color. I'm gonna go with red now for my next one. Again, if you have food coloring, maybe you put 3 drops. I'm gonna put a little blob of acrylic paint in there. I'm gonna use a different brush to mix my red. So again, you can see it turning now from red, from clear, it's going to turn into the red color here. Okay. And we're gonna mix it up real nice until I'm happy with my red. And some things to think about red, again, in nature, we might think of fire, we might think of blood, right? Blood is red. And I would love to hear later, actually, when we introduce each other, kind of like what colors do you think that, yeah, what do these colors represent for you? So then again, my last color I'm going to encourage you to use is yellow. And yellow, I'm going to use again, just a little bit for 3 or 4 drops. Basically, you can play with the drops. You can see how strong you want the color to be. And once we get started more, you can also decide if you want to add more. And then it's very tricky to put the caps back on. So there you go. All right. Let's see, how's everybody doing so far? Okay, all right. Okay, good. Okay, so I'm gonna mix in my yellow. I'm gonna use, again, a different brush for my yellow. I can show you right over here. And I have a really nice yellow. And sometimes my favorite part about, you know, painting or making art, sometimes I spend so much time just mixing my colors because I have such a good time seeing them turn from one like clear to the color that it is, and they can be so powerful. So I really try to enjoy when I mix my colors and take it in and have a good time with them. So, all right, so now we're gonna take, I'm gonna use a board just to use under because I don't want to get my table dirty, but if you want to use a piece of paper under, it's okay too, or whatever you have. Again, this board, by the way, the drawing, if anybody recognizes, it's probably flipped, but it's the map of Israel. I was doing a different project and I had an outline of the map of Israel, so there. 2 in 1. Okay, let me get set up here. I'm going to take a piece of cardboard or thick piece of paper. That's what I'm going to use today. So again, to show you kind of what I'm doing right here, I think that's good. I'm going to take a piece, maybe a piece of paper, just so that it soaks up a little bit of my mess, and put my paper on there. But we forgot one step, and that is that we have to add baking soda to our paints. This is the part where we start the science experiment. If it wasn't enough already to just mix the colors, we're gonna make it a little bit extra fun. So we're gonna sprinkle into your paint. You can do about maybe 1 teaspoon. You can start with that. I'm just gonna freehand it and just go for it. You can't really put too much unless it becomes solid, but as long as it's still, you know, liquid, we're okay. So there you go. All right, we're gonna put that in. It's kind of like cooking except the measuring, you know. Okay, so there you go. And you're gonna mix it up real good in your paint again. So each one has, so this is my yellow. I'm gonna mix it up real good with the yellow brush. The red one I'm gonna mix. I'll show you. Okay, red one I'm going to mix. And the blue. All right, we're almost ready. Okay, so if you brought a crayon, which you didn't have to, it was optional, like everything else here. But if you did have a crayon with you, you can use it to draw on your piece of paper something, okay? And it doesn't have to be a white crayon. I have a white crayon, which is fun for me because it kind of goes white on white and I can't see it and then I discover. So it's kind of like I hide a secret for myself. But you can do a colored crayon and it still works. So I'm gonna hide myself a secret, and maybe maybe I'm not gonna tell you what it is, and I'm just gonna go for it. It doesn't have to, actually it doesn't have to be anything. You can create shapes, but not too much of the crayon because you do want the paint to have room to go. So can you guys see anything? Me either, so that's perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna take some of my yellow paint. Okay, you guys are still seeing? Okay, great. And I'm just gonna go ahead and start painting the area. And just go over what I drew. I don't care, it doesn't matter, because what happens is that, as you might know already, oil and water doesn't mix. So because oil and water doesn't mix, and I use crayons are based with oil or wax, that is an oily substance. Sorry about that, that was my light. Okay, everything is fine, guys. When we put crayon onto the piece of paper, when we put the oil onto the piece of paper, it blocks the piece of paper from using paint on top of it. So I'm going to use my yellow again, and then I can blob into it. I can use different brushes, or I can even use the same brush. I'm liking how this brush is acting for me. So I'm gonna go into the red. I'm gonna blob a little bit of the red. It's just really fun. And I hope, can you guys see the colors well? You see it? Okay, good. And then we're gonna blob a little bit of the blue. And the reason why I wanted you to try, or encourage you to just use yellow, red, and blue is because you can create every color of the rainbow with just these 3 colors. So you can say, okay, I want to create, for example, green. What about green? So I can take, let's put them next to each other. I can take a little bit of yellow, okay, and a little bit of blue, and I can make a green, okay? In the same way that I can take, I'm gonna use my other brush now, the same way that I can take red, okay, and put it on it. This one already had a little bit of blue in it, but red and blue make purple, as you see here. So I add purple into the red. Okay, so this is gonna be very, very watery, and that's fine. But before I let it, you know, so you see how I'm kind of like going in there, and I'm even putting more color into the already color that I have, without mixing too much, because the colors kind of just blend by themselves once I put them next to each other, because it's so watery. And I hope that soon we'll be able to see my drawing in the back. So it's starting to come out a little bit. Another thing I can do is if I put too much on there, I can take a little bit more baking soda and I can sprinkle it around. Okay. And soon we're gonna make a fizz, but let's let it dry a little bit, okay? And while we let it dry, all right, so here we are. Mine dried a little bit. I did put, I'm gonna hold it up now. I put a lot of baking soda on it, so maybe I shouldn't hold it over my computer, but I'll do this. So you can see that it has a lot of baking soda, and I'm excited. Let's see what happens. So for the grand finale of, well, kind of maybe the beginning of the finale, I'm going to do some vinegar. I'm going to put some vinegar in a separate little container. And I'm going to take, maybe I'll take my mop brush that I said, this one works like a mop. And I can just, little bit by little, and I don't know if you can see, can you guys see it fizzing? But you can see it on yours for sure, doing it. But here, let me see if I can hold this up a little bit more. All right, is this, okay. If you're really quiet, you can hear it. You can't see it fizzing. It's okay. It just creates this really fun bubble, and it really just makes the paint jump up a little bit.
I see it, gal. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm trying to make it really dramatic. I'm putting like a lot of vinegar.
Whoa.
Okay, and then you can put, I'm gonna make it super dramatic, guys. Here we go. I put some, do you guys see how much?
I love dramatic.
Okay, so now I'm gonna take some of my color. I'm just gonna go on it, and I'm gonna take my vinegar. Can you guys see it fizzing around? And then, and I can go back and forth with my color as it's fizzing. I can take, you know, blue, and I put that blue on there, and then I take more vinegar, and I let it fizz more, and let it mix around, and maybe I swirl it a little bit even. And I let that do that for a while. I can take more vinegar. Okay. Put this here. So again, we can continue fizzing it around. And soon I'm gonna take maybe another color or another piece of paper, and I'm gonna let this dry a little bit more, then use the other one. And you can see that some of that, what I drew at the beginning, it does show up behind. And when it dries a little bit, I can show you again, but it makes me think of like space and stuff like that. Right, Rafi, look at that, that's awesome. Yeah, exactly. It makes me think of outer space or under the sea. I just want to show you a little bit how I'm using my Japanese brushes over here. I'm using them to really dribble around. So I'm just like straight up, no problem doing like, just like, I don't even care the shape or anything. I'm just letting the water and the paint just drip right on there. And it really looks like outer space. And I can try to put more vinegar in it. So I keep going back to the vinegar. Maybe I'll even go back to a little bit of the baking soda. And maybe I'll let this one rest, and I'm gonna take another piece of cardstock and try another one. So maybe try it in a different way. If you have a spray bottle, you can spray vinegar onto the paint and see what happens. Basically, it's really fun to experiment and see the different ways that paint can be used, and also kind of like how scientific it can be too. So you see here, and you can also think like, what does red mean to me? Like for me right now, I'm thinking about red a lot, maybe like blood in the way of life. I'm thinking about red, thinking about life. So I want to put some red in mine. Maybe I'm thinking about, you know, the sea. I'm thinking about the calm of the sea and the ocean, and that's maybe somewhere that I want to be right now. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put some of that on there too, because why not? If I don't have it, I can always imagine it, right? Let's put that on there. And maybe I want a little bit of sunshine, so I take a little bit of my yellow and I add my sunshine. And now this is very watery, so I'm going to maybe do another one. I'm gonna start another one. So how's everybody doing? Everybody's okay?
I think we're relaxed.
You're relaxed? Good. Good. Sometimes, you know, that's great. Awesome.
Nice. Very nice.
And then let's see. Okay, so here we go. This is the one I created earlier, and I'm gonna take, again, gonna continue with my mess, and I'm gonna take a little bit of the vinegar and add, and now it is fizzing where the baking soda was. So I'm just gonna add to this one because I wanna add another layer to it after it dried. And another thing I can do even is take, you know, more of this crayon, try to force it in, kind of like show up more. And the interesting thing too is when it dries, you can see what happens if you try to get some of the baking soda off. And now let's make a shape. I'm just gonna paint inside of that shape. So you can still go back to what you made earlier with your crayon and still kind of come back to it and use it as shapes. Let's see, I'm gonna use this right here as a shape too. And as you see, I didn't make anything specific. I'm just kind of like really enjoying the colors and the lines. The lines make me feel a certain way. I have, you know, very curvy lines. They make me feel a certain way as opposed to a very straight line, right? So you have a straight line and then we have a curved line. A curved line makes you maybe want to follow it. Straight line is a nice edge. And many artists, like there's not one way or another. As many artists, some artists love more straight lines, some artists love more curved lines. Some, you know, choose this and then choose something else. So we can just, you know, when you as you're letting one dry, you can draw with the other, draw on the other. I'm going to take some vinegar. Another thing is sometimes I like to puddle one color, make a puddle of one color, and then I go in with another color, and you just like, I can inject it into that. I kind of like put it right in the middle of the other color, and it collects very interesting. It's just like a little experiment to see what happens if I do that. It's always really fun. I'm getting something really interesting where my, I think, you know, I had too much water on there and I kind of like scratched in with the oil crayon and it created this kind of very interesting texture combined with the baking soda. And I don't know if you can see it, but it's just like, it's really cool. It's like I really like ripped into it, but also it kind of broke up. I don't know if you can see it, but it kind of broke up the crayon a little bit too. But it's just like really interesting to kind of like see what happens when you mix all those things together. This is the one I did like just now. I'm gonna put this one aside. And still not dry, but this is the one we were working on just now that was like so much. So again, even though it's not dry yet, I can still go in and do some stuff. And I can open up some areas. I can push around the baking soda and just like open up and create kind of like, I don't know, like kind of looks like a flower or an explosion. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a black hole. So the really fun thing about this is that we're working from, what is it?
The summertime.
What is it? What's really fun about this is that we're working from our subconscious. So our subconscious is kind of like where, kind of like the place of our imagination. It's actually the place of where our dreams come from. If we're not thinking of anything specific, then the subconscious, that area from our dreams, kicks in and we able to create very, very interesting things because we're not thinking of anything specific. So then one shape makes us think of another shape. And then that shape makes us think of a line. And then that line makes us think of a color. So we're not going, even if you are drawing something specific, that's great. But in this case, what I'm doing is I'm kind of just letting the back of my mind do all of the work. And I kind of like my logic and like how I think what makes sense to me, I kind of put it away. It's like, I'm gonna block that. I'm just gonna let my imagination, the back side of my head work. And if you think about it that way, as the back side of your head, it really does help you think, like bring it, you know, concentrate on that, on having like the back of your head, if you think about that, like where your dreams come from. So you just kind of turn off the really hard thinking and you kind of turn on the very imaginary and loose, very loose thinking. So
yeah, you can keep doing what you're doing, but I just want to thank
no, go for it. Yeah,
thank you so much for leading this. This was so like soothing and relaxing and beautiful and just like great to share like all of this art and inspiration with everyone today. So thank you, Gal. Thank you everyone who logged on.
thank you guys. Thanks for participating.
Yeah, and thank you guys for sharing your art with us, the different kinds of art, drawing, doodling, painting, you know, following this art project with the baking soda and vinegar. This is super fun.
Good. I'm glad you guys are having a good time. So at least, you know, at least we get to see some interesting colors and see each other's faces and company. And so that's the best part of it.
Yeah, and this is something so easy. You guys can do it at home another day. You know, whenever you feel like it. It's just a fun, quick thing to do. And thank you so much, Gal.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to, if it's okay, while everybody's still on there, can we do like a grand finale? Because I just poured the rest of my baking soda on my paper and I want to put like some vinegar in it just to see what it does. You guys want to check it out?
Let's see it.
Do you see it? You see all this? Okay, and I also have a lot of paint, some paint here. So like I said, I can't just not get messy, but here we go. Let's just put some vinegar on there.
Schools are closed.
Whoa.
Ta-da!
That's so cool.
I was expecting for it to be more blue even.
I know, but I didn't mix it in.
There you go.
That's cool.
Wow.
And then,
That's
all right, what's that, guys? Wait, there you go.
That's so fun.
Volcano.
It's like it's the volcano, exactly. It's like the volcano.
I wonder what it will look like once it's dry.
That's what I'm excited to see, and that is something that maybe we can share next time with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. This was so fun.
Friends.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Hi, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Enjoy this beautiful day. If you can go outside, it's so nice out.
Yeah.
Definitely.